Step right up, dummies, and listen to the stupidest sports show on earth with Rodney Newpole and Tim Van Stratton. Yeah.
Hello, dummies, and welcome to the new year, to episode 32 of the stupidest sports show on earth. My name, of course, as you remember, is Tim Big Mac Van Stratton. With me is Rodney Newpole. Didn't make it out of the alley for the new year. That's disappointing.
No, here I am. The brick wall behind me. Had a pretty good week 18 though, so I'm making my way back. We'll see what happens in the playoffs here. Next 3-4 weeks of playoff action. We'll see what happens. But Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you. Yes, as you see, I upgraded temporarily for the week. I have many books behind me. I decided in the new year to become a learned man. It goes against everything the stupidest sports show on earth should be about: reading information.
You haven't read you probably haven't read a single one of those, but they are a nice little background there for you.
No, not even a little bit. I couldn't even read the covers of them, so I wouldn't even know what I'm actually reading. So that's disappointing. But anyways, thank you to everyone joining us for episode 32 of the stupidest sports show on earth. We took a little break for the holidays, but we are back today. Where did we leave off? It was like, what were there, 2 weeks left in the NFL season, 3 weeks left in the NFL season? We tried to give our predictions. I think, and I'm trying to remember how we all did it. I think it ended up pretty dang close to where we were at. We liked Tampa Bay to win the division. We liked the Rams to win the division. I remember you went out on a big swing with the Eagles getting the 1 seed, which, I mean, the Eagles were very close to it.
So yes, our predictions then were pretty good. We both went wrong season wide with Atlanta. I went wrong with the combination of like Miami and Seattle, and then you went wrong with Cincinnati. And you swung and missed big time on Minnesota. But I can't take credit for that because I didn't have them in the playoffs either. So, and I can say that I didn't get Green Bay right, although I feel like they are fizzling into the playoffs, especially with no Christian Watson coming up.
Yeah, I have no confidence in Green Bay now. And we're going to talk all about the playoff matchups, give a little bit of a preview there. But yes, to what you were saying before in terms of what we whiffed on, I would say having a week 6 guarantee of the Falcons winning the division, that hurt. Bengals did end up with a winning record.
They did.
9-8.
And so did Seattle.
And so did Seattle. Yes, that was a good one too. I was very, very close. I was holding out all the hope that the Bengals were going to find a way to sneak in. They did their job. The Dolphins fizzled out. The Colts fizzled out. But Broncos having that week 18 against Kansas City team that had nothing to play for. It was going to be very, very difficult. It's just sad that the Bengals, if they would have beaten the Patriots week 1 at home, they'd be a playoff team right now.
Yeah, that's so wild. And thinking about it, New England, had they not won that game, would have still gotten the number 1 pick. I mean, they won one too many games. We saw that number 1 pick kind of go, well, your Giants had it for a while, and then the Patriots had it. Nobody wanted it, and now it ends up in Nashville with a new GM coming in.
With a new GM, which that's going to be interesting, and that is part of the Black Monday. He got fired on Tuesday, but we have some Black Monday recapping to do a little bit later on in the show. But to recap the playoffs that we have going into wildcard weekend. So the Chiefs, no surprise, they get the 1 seed. They get a first-round bye. The AFC, you have the Bills as the 2. They host the Denver Broncos as the 7 seed. You have the Ravens and Steelers, a rematch there in Baltimore, and then Chargers-Texans in Houston. Right off the bat, Rodney, I give the Broncos a 0% chance. And I think I give the Steelers about a 5% chance.
Yeah, so a little concerning that people that may know the NFL, maybe more than us, those that follow the NFL, that get paid to be in the NFL, are really high on Denver to compete in that game. I don't know as if I am, but the more I hear them talk about it, Dan Patrick had a couple guys on yesterday and today, and they both really like Denver's chances. And then at 8.5, that seems like a lot of points when talking betting. Now, straight up, do I think they can go to Buffalo in January and win? Probably not. But gosh, we've discredited, I don't know about we, but as a group, we've discredited Bo Nix all year. And Sean Payton's a pretty good football coach. So maybe they're on upset alert. I mean, if gun to head, I'm taking Buffalo. You're right. Definitely taking Baltimore. I just feel like Pittsburgh's kind of, obviously they're struggling right now. And you kind of brought up a point earlier in the week. If Mike Tomlin had any guts at all, he would possibly go with Justin Fields this weekend, but that's not happening. It's kind of the same story as Atlanta, not sitting Kirk Cousins on Monday night. It's just not going to happen for that one. Maybe it's the right move, but it's not going to happen. So it's going to be Russell Wilson. He stinks over the last couple of weeks. Just stinks.
Yeah, and their QBRs ended up pretty much identical. I think it was something like 51-4 was Fields and 51.3 was Wilson. So it ended up being a wash essentially. But yeah, I mean the Steelers lost their last four straight losses.
4 straight. I don't think it's ever happened in playoff history that a team goes into the playoffs with 4 straight losses.
Yeah, I mean they were in the conversation for a 2 seed for much of the year. The offense got a little bit of a jolt, but we looked at their schedule and going into the final few weeks, and we said, this is going to be the test for the Steelers because there's a lot of really good teams here. And we're finally going to get to see, okay, is this team for real or are they a fluke? And I think they've proven that they're a fluke. Like it's a 10-7 team that feels very similar to all of the Steelers teams that we've seen in years past that makes the playoffs, but then just peters out. They're not a threat to win the Super Bowl by any means. And if they find a way to beat Baltimore, they'll face probably Kansas City and get murdered. And that'll be the end of it.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not really necessarily wanting to talk too much about ifs, but if Baltimore does lose that game to Pittsburgh, that's a huge, huge stain on Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Like they cannot lose that game. Now, if they go lose to Buffalo in round 2 at Buffalo, okay, you can probably accept that. But if you're Baltimore, you cannot lose this game in Pittsburgh, a divisional rival, a team you've recently beat. You've got to win this game, and it's kind of a legacy Lamar Jackson. I mean, at some point Jackson's got to get to a Super Bowl, but he needs to win this game first. So I do like their chances.
It is. I understand what you're saying because we can't really say, oh, the Ravens, they're broken. They need to blow everything up. No, it's a fantastic football team. Lamar Jackson is right there in the MVP conversation, would be his 3rd MVP through 6 seasons in the league, 7 seasons in the league. Like he's a stud. But all that being said, there is now years of proof that he struggles in the playoffs and against Steelers, like divisional opponents, like those big games, these big games against Kansas City, these big games against Pittsburgh. His stats and the Ravens record reflects it are way lower than how they do against everywhere else. So their path realistically is Steelers, Bills, Chiefs. Like all 3 of their biggest rivals and the things that are keeping them from reaching the Super Bowl, that next level, they got to do it all this offseason or this postseason, and that's going to be really tough.
Yeah, 2 of them on the road. 2 of them on the road. One in Buffalo and one Kansas City. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to give them credit if they can win 3 games and get to the Super Bowl. But man, that seems like a tough task.
Yeah. And it felt like last year having that home field advantage was probably like that should have been the year to do it.
Yeah, but adding Derrick Henry, I mean we've seen that this is a very dangerous offense. Now there are some concerns. Zay Flowers got hurt in that last game. Like, what's his status? I don't love their receiving core in general, and now Zay Flowers being a little questionable. Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely are good targets, but we'll see. I don't know if you can depend on only Lamar running and only Derrick Henry running. We'll see what happens there, though.
I'm real quick before we move off this game here. We were talking about Denver, and I just pulled up their schedule. They've lost 4 of their last 5 road games.
Yes.
So they lost at Cincinnati in that overtime game. They lost against the Chargers.
Yep.
So 2 teams winning records, right? Then they won against the Raiders by 10. Then they lost 16-14 to Kansas City. Then they got crushed in Baltimore 41-10. Like, it's not a good road team. And then you look, their other road games, they lost to Seattle. They beat Tampa Bay. They snuck by the Jets in that 10-9 game, that awful one. And then they comfortably beat the Saints. This is not a very good road sort of record. And I don't see how they go into Buffalo and beat Josh Allen.
And I haven't looked yet, but I'm guessing there's about 3 feet of snow coming for Buffalo. And I mean, always. Yeah. I mean, Denver can't be scared of that. They get their own snow anyway, but the conditions aren't going to be real good. The people in Buffalo are, because I mean, if you're in Buffalo, you get that 2 seed. Now, obviously your nemesis is still Kansas City, but like you're thinking AFC championship for sure. And this is the year Josh Allen's been tremendous too. So for Buffalo, like this first round game is another one of those. Like you can't lose this game. You've got to get that home game in round 2 where you're playing a Baltimore team with a chance to go to the AFC title game. So I'm excited to see Josh Allen because, gosh, he's been really good.
Chargers-Texans is the only other AFC game that we haven't really thought about. It's the only one in the AFC that has the road team as the favorite. I mean, Buffalo and Baltimore are large home favorites, and then the Chargers are giving 2.5 points on the road. Houston has just felt for pretty much half the year like just fraud team, fraud central. Chargers have a coach advantage. At this point, I would say they have a quarterback advantage. Their defense is much better. I mean, first instinct is the Chargers win this game. It's probably going to be ugly. I don't think it'll be a really entertaining game, but I think that's how the Chargers want it. And they get a couple turnovers from Stroud and they win this game.
Yeah. So what I find interesting is when the Texans make the playoffs, they always play at 3:30 on Saturday. Always.
Yes. Fact, always the first one.
In fact, their statistics show that's what happens. And I don't know why is that. I don't know. Is that they just want to get this one out of the way? Like I don't get it. But
yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think this has got to go to LA. The coach, you said coaching advantage. Stroud hasn't been real good. The Houston's banged up still, with their receiving core, losing Tank Dell, losing Stephon Diggs. I mean, Nico Collins can only do so much. Now, I would be a little concerned about Joe Mixon if I was the Chargers because he is well rested. He has been good this year. But on the Chargers side, like they want to run the ball. J.K. Dobbins is probably going to get the ball plenty. And then when you do give Justin Herbert a chance to pass, Ladd McConkey, pretty good. So I will take the Chargers somewhere like 24-20, 21-17, in the high 30s, low 40s. And Chargers win by a couple points. I'll take the Chargers in that one.
Yeah, I don't see high scoring. I don't know what the over-under is there. 42.5. Yeah, I would. First instinct is under. I mean, the Chargers had, I think it probably got snapped, but at some point they made it through the first 13, 14 weeks of the season without allowing more than 8 points in the first half.
Yeah.
That's their game. And I think that we'll see something similar to that again against Houston. Like this Texans offense hasn't looked very good for a while now.
Yeah, I mean, it's the second-year struggle for C.J. Stroud, and it's been real, and it's been almost all year. I mean, he was looked at as like an MVP candidate at the start of the year, and now, I mean, that certainly hasn't come true. And they struggled down the stretch to beat the Tennessees and the Jacksonvilles. I think the Houston season's coming to an end on Saturday.
All right, and now I look at the NFC. You have the Lions, who for what was – probably through 2.5 quarters, a pretty close game Sunday night against Minnesota, and then Jahmyr Gibbs happened, and then Sam Darnold just missing throws left and right happened, and it ended up being a blowout. So Detroit gets the 1 seed. They're locked in. I'm really fascinated just the way that the Packers flipped with Washington. In my mind, I never considered Green Bay moving off of that 6.
Mm-hmm.
But that loss to the Bears combined with Washington's last-minute win against Dallas then moves Green Bay from a matchup against Tampa to now you have to go to Philadelphia to play Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts. Maybe Jalen Hurts. We'll see. But Saquon Barkley and the Eagles. Packers are going to be in a real tough spot there, and it's Eagles 4.5 right now, and I would hammer that. I would absolutely hammer it. I think it should be closer to a touchdown.
Yeah, but you got to be you said it, got to be a little concerned with Jalen Hurts. Yeah. I mean, he hasn't passed concussion protocol. And, as much as people want to think like concussion protocols is kind of blown up, like if he doesn't pass, he's not going to play. Like they're not going to make up that he passed. NFL is not going to allow that. It's just not going to happen. So he doesn't pass. You're looking at what, the Carson Wentz or,
Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett, backup. Yeah. I mean, Kenny Pickett, Tanner McKee. I mean, yeah, Saquon Barkley gets the ball 35 times in that game and says, "Go win this game for us." Green Bay on the other side, I know
Jordan Love had to leave that game with an injury. And you mentioned at the top of the show, Christian Watson is done.
Yeah, he's done. Yes, Jordan Love is banged up. You can't lose that game to Chicago. I know you didn't care a whole lot about that game, but you can't lose that game. Yes, that's a big difference of going to Tampa or going to Philadelphia. So I think the Packers run is over, but I will say, again, I've been pretty negative on the Packers all year, and I've been very high on the Eagles. So it makes me nervous. This one makes me nervous. Sirianni, say what we want. I don't know if he got his guys prepared to win 3 games in the NFC and get to the Super Bowl again. We'll see. He's been kind of weird with the media, of course, because he's just bad with the media. But I don't know where Jalen. He literally could not answer whether Jalen Hurts is building the building or not. Basically saying, he hasn't been in the building. So we'll see. A little bit scared for the Eagles in this one.
Yeah, well, you don't want to give Green Bay any nuggets of information about Jalen. I mean, Packers have to game plan as if Jalen Hurts is playing.
Correct.
And then you go from there. But yeah, even if Hurts has to miss, I still think the Eagles would sneak that game out. I think the Packers might have just blown it. Just the way that they lost, falling that set, Jordan Love being banged up, they might have just blown their shot.
Yeah.
And this is a team that looked pretty good for a lot of the year. But so that's the first one on Sunday. Then you have Commanders-Buccaneers. I think this could potentially be it. While it's the grossest matchup in terms of like brands and team names, it might be actually the most entertaining wildcard weekend game that we have so far.
Yeah. Who had a better year, Jaden Daniels or Baker Mayfield?
Well, statistically, Baker Mayfield, but
yeah.
But yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, Jaden Daniels has re-energized that franchise.
Yeah, we're more surprised by what Jaden Daniels did than we are Baker Mayfield. Mayfield, we're not overly surprised by what Baker Mayfield did. He did a lot of this last year too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, he earned his contract. He got 3 years, $30 million a year, whatever. But which now honestly feels like an underpay. I think the Bucs got a steal there.
Let me ask you one more thing here, kind of off topic. Were you okay with how Mike Evans got his 1,000th yard? I mean, I'm not going to throw a big fit about it, but like
it was a little silly.
It was a little silly.
It was a little silly. I'm glad that they did it because I think that it's a really impressive streak that he's on. That it's a legendary streak. It's him and Jerry Rice. It's an incredible thing. Would it have been nice to maybe do it like in a better way? Maybe not in the final game of the season, sure. But he also missed a couple games this year. There were some injuries there, and he was still able to get it. So, I mean, I while acknowledging it's silly, I think that I'm ultimately happy that Mike Evans was able to get it as opposed to him falling 5 yards short. That would have sucked.
Yeah. Do you think New Orleans knew that was coming?
I don't know how they wouldn't have, right? Like, why were they not just swarmed all over him?
So they're like, okay, just go ahead and take 7 yards, get your record.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Maybe, like, did they just not want to be a dick and just be like, all right, fine, whatever.
We're going to put 4 guys on Mike Evans' display. You go ahead. You go ahead and throw it to him.
Just keep doing aggressive pass interference calls and then over and over again until the clock runs out. It just doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, where they get – so then they get to the 1 yard line. He literally can't get 5 yards.
Yeah, right. Like, that would have been that would have been shitty though. Like you would have really created some bad blood between you and the Bucs if you did that. Hilarious, but like. Yeah, it wouldn't work. But yeah, I had the same thought too. It was New Orleans, like clearly that Tampa Bay is trying to do everything they can to make sure Mike Evans gets to 1,000.
So back to this game, I'm gonna give Tampa the advantage. I'm gonna take Tampa at home. Still love what Jaden Daniels has done. You were higher on him earlier than me, so kudos to you on that one. I mean,
12-5 for Washington, by the way, was their final record.
Yeah, and we kind of got to a stretch where we're like, ooh, I don't know, maybe they're falling apart here. So weren't they 7-5? Did they win their last 5?
Yeah, I'm just looking right now. They had the benefit of a pretty cushy schedule a little bit, but so after that loss to Dallas with the just the ridiculous series of events. Yes. They crushed the Titans.
Yeah.
They snuck past the Saints. That was the one where the Saints went for 2 and didn't get it. So they kind of got a break there. They beat the Eagles in that 36-33 game. That was a fun one.
Yeah.
But also Jalen Hurts got hurt in that game.
Correct.
They beat the Falcons in overtime.
Yeah.
Which, again, kind of lucky there. Koo had a field goal opportunity, missed it, went to overtime. And then they squeaked past Dallas, scored in the final minute of the game. So, I mean, listen, they were a last-place team.
Yeah.
They have a new coach. They have a rookie quarterback. Of course, they had some lucky breaks. I mean, for God's sake, look at that win against the Bears. So they have had a lot of luck on their side this year. It shows me that, like, both of these things can be true. Jaden Daniels can be a very good quarterback. Dan Quinn clearly is a very good head coach. But also this team is not sniffing 12 wins again next year. Like, that's just, there's going to be some natural regression. It's probably closer to like 8-9 wins next year. And especially when you look at just sophomore slumps, if CJ Stroud can go from top 5 quarterback to, he's going to get bounced at home in the first round. Like, right. Jaden Daniels can probably do the same thing. So Washington fans should enjoy it. They could win at Tampa Bay. I think it'll be really fun, but yeah, I mean, 12 wins is not something that we should expect from them.
No,
permanently.
No, and I mean, I'm guessing the NFC East will be. I mean, Philadelphia is obviously going to be pretty good. I think we don't know what Dallas is going to look like next year. Think they'll be better, but yeah, 12. You can't expect them to win 12 games. I'll take Tampa in this one in a narrow game, but I do think, like you said from the start, this could be our best game we see all weekend.
And then I'm curious to hear your thoughts here, because I think we're going to fall in the same line here. Vikings-Rams, Monday night. Minnesota's a 1.5-point favorite. This is a game that happened already on a Thursday night after Minnesota lost a close game to the Detroit Lions. They turned around, went to LA, and lost to a Rams team that at that point was, 1-4? Like, they were not in the race at all. Yeah. Rams get hot. They win the division, finish at 10-7. So now they meet again in Los Angeles. And I have to tell you, the Rams are going to do it again. Like, I believe the Rams win this game again, and Minnesota's dream season falls apart before it can really get going.
Yeah, so a couple things. If Minnesota struggles and Darnold struggles, he's not coming back. They're not bringing him back.
Yes, that's correct.
Second thing, I love Sean McVay's attitude about last week going into this week. Like, I don't care who we play. I do not care what seed we get. If we get the 3 seed, great. We can play Washington or whatever. If we get the 4 seed, great. We can play a 14-win Minnesota or a Detroit team. He does not care because he wanted his players healthy. They competed last week, didn't win. Didn't matter. We were going to be 4 seed anyway. 4 seed anyway. For the most part. But anyways, I think I like LA as well here, as long as they stay healthy. Kyron Williams took last week off, so he's back ready to go. Puka and Cooper Kupp seem to be ready to go and healthy. Yeah, I mean, Minnesota. So Dan Orlowski mentioned that Sam Darnold missed 5 touchdown passes last week. Mm-hmm. He missed 5 touchdown passes. He's got to be better. If he's not better, it's season over. And maybe we are seeing what Sam Darnold actually is, although it's hard to discredit his top 5 season. I mean, he was a top 5 player this year.
Yeah.
I'll take LA at home. LA doesn't have the ultimate home field advantage, but they're going to have plenty. They have grown a fan base more out there than 3-4 years ago. But Minnesota's not. Minnesota travels well, but it's going to be hard to overtake LA. I will take the Rams in this one.
Did you notice anything? Because the whole story on Sunday was Minnesota buying $2 million worth of tickets to put right behind the bench. Did you feel that had any sort of impact during the game? Like, I was watching, I was like, I wouldn't be able to tell otherwise that the Vikings sent a whole bunch of fans there.
No, in fact, there's been a lot of talk about how Detroit fans were more rabid than ever. Were loud from the start, right at intros, very loud. and Detroit fans did well. So, yes, they bought those tickets, but it sounded like some of the Viking season ticket holders that got those ended up selling them anyway to profit. So I love that. I love that. Minnesota goes and buys expensive tickets from Detroit.
Yeah.
They want to sell them to their season ticket holders for a cheaper price just to get them in the doors. Minnesota organization willing to take a hit financially, fine. And then the Minnesota fans like, yeah, I ain't going to Detroit. I'm gonna make money off this. I bought them for 20. I'm gonna sell for 50. It's something I would do.
Yeah,
I kind of like it.
Very proud.
I kind of like it. But no, I did not think the Vikings fans overtook Detroit by any means.
Yeah, it would have been cool because we don't see that in the NFL. It felt like a college environment where you actually have a dedicated fan section for the visiting team. But no, I wouldn't have noticed anything. And especially in the second half when Detroit started pulling away, it felt like it was just a normal Detroit home game. I have a question real quick. And we're obviously going to give our official wild card predictions on Friday.
Yeah.
Who are you rooting for to win the Super Bowl? Like, just not forget about like who you think, forget about like what you're betting on. Who, just as someone who watches football, who naturally has, you don't really have like a dedicated team that you're rooting for despite your Raiders sweatshirt today. Like, who are you just rooting for in terms of like, you know what? It would be really cool to see this team win the Super Bowl.
So I think my Super Bowl would be Buffalo because of Josh Allen and Tampa because of Baker Mayfield. I would love to see Baker get a chance to be in a Super Bowl. I like Baker's story. I know he's got some, maybe some over the top swag. He's a little bit of a troll at times, but he's a good player and he just continues to go out there and play. He's been through quite a bit actually in his NFL career. Like he went through a couple early coaching changes, which really had him struggle. And now he's kind of reinvented himself and been really good. On the other side, Josh Allen, I like that story. I would like him to get there, and that the narrative of he can't get there can be over. I think Buffalo, Tampa, although in the NFC, as much as the Rams broke my heart, I'd like to see McVay back. I like seeing dudes that know how to win. And so then I say that, but I'm kind of tired of Kansas City. Like, I don't really want to see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl again. Yeah. I want new blood. So my number 2 in the NFC is going to be the Rams. Number 2 in the AFC, I'll go Baltimore because Lamar and Derrick Henry are fun to watch. Mm-hmm. So they'll be my 2 in the AFC.
Let me throw a wild one at you in the AFC. What if Jim Harbaugh finds a way to get to the Chargers there?
Yeah.
Like they beat Houston. I mean, they're familiar with Kansas City. They're able to pull off an upset there, and then they get Buffalo or they get Baltimore in the AFC title game. I don't think it would happen. That's a tough ask, but we might be a couple years away. But like seeing Jim Harbaugh take that franchise, which was that's the same team that gave up 63 points to the Raiders last year, and then a year later they would be in a Super Bowl, would be incredible.
In fact, I think the last 2 years I picked them to go to the Super Bowl.
Yes,
under whatever that guy's name was, Brandon Staley.
Oh, Brandon Staley, that dope. His first year there, he goes for it on 4th down. Like in the first 3 weeks of the year, we're like, wow, this guy's a genius. Because at that time, no one was going for it on 4th down yet. And then we quickly realized, oh, he's a massive idiot.
Yeah, 4th and 12 at the 18. Oh, okay. Okay, Brandon. Got it. But that would be all. It would be so fun, too, to see Harbaugh because the stories about how the Bears didn't even consider interviewing him. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, Harbaugh would have gone to the Bears.
Yeah, that was perfect. It would have been a perfect fit.
Harbaugh would have gone to the Bears. All you had to do is interview him. And now here you are, another opportunity to hire a coach for the Chicago Bears. And we can get to that here soon when we do our Black Monday. But yeah, I would be okay with Harbaugh being in the Super Bowl. I really would. Just again, greatness being great.
I'll go chalk here. I think this is the popular pick, but I would say if your team is not in the playoffs, you have a soft spot for the Detroit Lions. Seeing because last year when they blew that 17-point lead to San Francisco in the NFC Championship game, it felt like, and Dan Campbell acknowledged this, like this could have been our only shot. And there was a possibility that was going to happen. But not only like are they back in the playoffs, but they won 15 games. They got the freaking 1 seed. Like there's a very good chance that they're going to be in the NFC title game again at home and in a Super Bowl, like the Detroit Lions. So like that's obviously what I'm rooting for. I would love Buffalo to get there too. A perfect world, Buffalo, Detroit for me. One of those franchises, just obsessive fan bases. No Super Bowl wins for either of those teams, and the fact that one of them would be holding the Lombardi Trophy at the end would be awesome, regardless of who it was. Yeah, that would be ideal. But I'm with you. Tampa Bay would be a great story. Baltimore, Lamar Jackson overcoming Mahomes, Pittsburgh, like all the playoff demons getting to a Super Bowl would be a lot of fun. There are a lot of really interesting possibilities with how this postseason could end.
Buffalo, Detroit would be a little geographical too. I can't think that can be too far from each other. I mean, I know my geography a little bit. It can't be too far from each other.
No, just a little boat ride, right?
Yeah,
but maybe you gotta go above Michigan for
and over. Yeah.
But
I mean that would be fun for them. Who don't you want to see? I don't want to see Kansas City.
Yeah, I acknowledge that they're great. I acknowledge that they are the new Patriots.
Yeah, no.
What comes with being the new Patriots is that everyone starts to root against you. And I don't say I hate them. Like I don't hate Mahomes. I don't hate Andy Reid. I actually like Andy Reid a lot. I always have. But I'm ready for new blood. I think you put it perfectly. I'm ready to just see someone new. And there's so many interesting, fun teams in the AFC. Great quarterbacks: Buffalo, Baltimore. Either of those teams over Kansas City. If they end up playing, I would root for them over Kansas City.
So I'll just make it easy for you. You do not want to see the Eagles in the NFC.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. That's obvious. Why? We know that.
Any other team in the NFC except the Eagles, I'm good with. Even if Washington somehow finds a way to the Super Bowl, awesome. What a great story. No,
so for me, I don't think I have an NFC team that I'm just like absolutely not. I don't mind any of them, and I think they all have interesting stories. Eagles mostly just to spite you, really.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And also because you predicted it, like at the beginning of the year. You
right, yeah. Philadelphia, Buffalo would be fun. I'd be like, oh, yeah, see, Rodney knows ball. But I don't know. We'll see. But, yeah, it should be a fun wild card weekend and then divisional weekend and then conference championship. So, yeah, 3 straight weeks here of really high-level football.
And speaking of football, not necessarily a higher level, but more lower level, Black Monday was yesterday. This is where all of the bad NFL teams dominate the news cycle. Yep. Are you surprised we only saw 2 head coaches fired after the season?
I'm still a little confused with Gerard Mayo. I get they were bad, but like this was the guy. Well, first of all, he had it in his contract, which that's beyond weird. But then, like, if you were grooming this guy for 5 years, why did it take 1 to say he's not it? And then in the press conference, Robert Kraft went on to say, I think this guy's got all the tools to be a great head coach someday. Well, you got to let him get to that. I don't know. I found that one weird. I mean, I'm not really surprised because there was several firings late in the year. I don't know, like, is there one still hanging on that Mike McCarthy, but that was never going to be a firing anyway. It was going to be that either we're going to bring you back or not.
When we were talking about this, we were like certain, it was going to be Mike McCarthy fired. How did he end up saving his job again?
Well, has he though? I mean, they haven't extended him. He's under they got to renew his contract, and they got until next Thursday. Basically, Chicago's asked to interview him. Okay, but
that would be great.
But I think what Chicago is doing is, I think Chicago is basically trying to tell their fan base, we are interviewing everyone. Because we want to make sure we get the very best possible guy, and that's probably the right move because going out and picking one guy, and then if that doesn't work, is going to blow up in their face. I mean, it's going to blow up in their face anyway. But, yeah, so I think that's what Chicago is doing. But McCarthy still may not be coming back. But is there anybody else that we're like, how did he make it through?
Dable and the Giants.
Yeah.
A little surprised, even though I've kind of like flip-flopped on that. And I believe that probably once they benched Daniel Jones, it was a sort of handshake agreement that like, hey, we're going to give you an opportunity regardless of how this season goes. We're going to give you a chance to see this playing through a bit. But If it blows up in 2025, it's done. But yeah, like you said, the Jets had a midseason firing. The Bears had their first midseason firing. The Saints had one. A lot of the other teams that struggled, the Browns ended up firing coordinators. Bengals fired their defensive coordinator. I'm surprised the Seahawks fired their offensive coordinator because I felt like their offense was actually pretty good and had an upgrade this year. Like they went 10-7. Geno was fine. Jackson Smith and Jigba was really good. They could run the ball. So I was surprised that they fired their offensive staff. Did I mention the Jets? I think I did about midseason firing. But
now in our head coaching cycle, our names out there are Vrabel, which of course is a good one. But then you've got Pete Carroll, you've got Mike McCarthy.
Do we actually have Pete Carroll though? Because the rumor was he was interested in the Bears, and yet he's like the one guy out of the 200 that the Bears are interviewing that like they haven't said they're interviewing.
I mean, his name's out there for several opportunities here, so we'll see.
Okay.
I don't know if he's actually going to get another chance or not. But you got kind of some of these recyclable guys, and then of course you're going to have both the offensive and the defensive coordinator in Detroit because they're the sexy names, and you're going to have the defensive coordinator in Minnesota. That's kind of how the term goes here, where like the hot teams, those coordinators are the new guys. So we'll see. And then a couple GM jobs. We mentioned Tennessee is one of them.
Yeah, Tennessee today, they fired their GM. He was, I think he was part of their front office for the last couple of years. He got elevated to the GM role. And now, so this is where I've gone. We haven't really talked much about draft yet, and I'm sure we won't for a little bit. But so Tennessee gets the number 1 pick. It's a very weak quarterback class. They need a quarterback like Will Levis and Mason Rudolph. That ain't it. But I'm always fascinated when a new GM comes in because typically a new GM, like you don't necessarily have 1 year to fix everything. You have a little bit of a runway. And if he decides, hey, my first move as the new general manager of the Titans is I'm going to draft Shedeur Sanders, when a lot of teams don't really view Shedeur Sanders as a first-round pick, let alone first overall. And let's say it blows up. Well, then that's your job there. But what you could do is you could draft Travis Hunter. Best prospect in the draft, right? You did that. You get a veteran bridge quarterback, and you keep yourself in the running for a better quarterback prospect in 26 or maybe even 27. Because the GM doesn't need now to draft a quarterback in order to save his job, right? So like that opens the door there. Like, are we sure that it's going to be quarterbacks 1-2 in the draft class? Because I'm not so sure.
I'm not so sure either. I mean, and that's we don't even know who this new GM is going to be. I think maybe that'll help tell. Maybe he'll have a history of drafts or he'll have a history with a certain organization. It'll be interesting to see. But he doesn't need to draft. You're right. A bridge quarterback would probably be a good thing for Tennessee. Like, I don't Sam. Yeah, it's probably not Sam Darnold, but who are we thinking there? Like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out who they could go with because Will Levis and Mason Rudolph ain't it.
No, it's not. It's a weird situation because they spent a lot of money in the offseason. They got Calvin Ridley. They got Tony Pollard. They thought that they would be competing for the division, and the division wasn't that good. They could have. They didn't have any good quarterback play, and it cost them. So yeah, that's real interesting. It's going to be very fascinating to see how it plays out with Tennessee and Cleveland because they have such bizarre situations where they kind of need quarterbacks, but also no one would be surprised if they didn't take quarterbacks, and it's not a good class. And then you have the Giants sitting there, and the Giants, who do need a quarterback, might have their pick, and there isn't one available for them.
Yeah, because Cam Ward going to go 1?
So yesterday, the rumblings was that Tennessee really liked Cam Ward. That was the old GM.
Yeah.
So who knows if the new GM feels the same way about Cam Ward? You see what I'm saying here?
The owner found out that he liked Cam Ward and said, "Yeah, no way, no, you're not making this draft for me." Then, yeah, it's interesting.
No, it feels like one of those two teams, especially Cleveland, is in a good position to trade down. I mentioned it to you yesterday or a couple days ago. It makes sense in my head for Tennessee to just make that pick to take a quarterback, whichever one that they like, because it's going to be better than Will Levis. Will Levis stinks. Cleveland has Deshaun Watson, right? They don't believe in Deshaun Watson, but also they spent a lot of draft capital in order to get him, and they could have it very easily get some back by making a move with a desperate team like the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who's to say they can't trade with the Raiders? Raiders move up to 2. They get Shedeur Sanders, which I think Shedeur probably would want to go to the Raiders more than anyone. Dion would love that. Yeah. And then the Browns get maybe the Raiders' first-round pick next year, a couple other picks. Then they're still in a position at 6 to get one of the really solid defensive prospects in the draft, and you build your defense out again. You become a defensive first football team, and you just try to get what you can with Watson or whoever else. Makes sense to me.
That's another guy that we didn't talk about that didn't get fired. Antonio Pierce is still there.
Yeah,
a second
I
year,
thought he was going to be one and done.
Yeah, a second year is probably warranted. I mean, just because if not, you're going to have to start over again. But they need to see improvement. They definitely need to see improvement next year. But I mean, that's a tough division to compete in. I mean, you got the champs, you got the surging Chargers, and you've got the surging Broncos. I mean, those two teams came out and kind of came out of nowhere and were really good this year. So a tough job there in Vegas.
It is, with now Tom Brady sort of in the owner's ear a little bit and wanting to make some moves. I mean, it's for the Raiders, it's pretty obvious. Like, they knew they didn't have a quarterback. And it's like, well, what are we going to do? This year was kind of tough. Would they have liked to have a top 2 pick? I'm sure. Yeah, it's better than 6, but now they gotta hope that a quarterback drops or be willing to trade for one.
Yeah, they won a couple games down the stretch that got rid of that number 1 pick. But I mean, and honestly, Aiden O'Connell was decent. I mean, he wasn't great, and he's not.
He shows flashes.
Yeah. I mean, he's not the future there in Vegas, but he was a lot better than these other backup / whatever you want. I mean, he's not really even a backup. He was their guy, but he's better than some of these other guys that he's better than Will Levis. He's better than Mac Jones. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I like what your thought there on Vegas. Like, if they can get Shedeur Sanders, I think they got to do it. And Sanders being in Vegas would be a big hit. You can market him like crazy out there.
Do you think that, because it's kind of the you remember during the year, people thought like, oh, Dion is going to control where Shedeur goes, and they've kind of put the kibosh on that a little bit. But would you be shocked if sort of behind the scenes, they're like, hey, we really don't want to go to Cleveland.
Correct.
Like, we're really hoping that we're fine falling to 3 to the Giants. We're fine even falling like to the Raiders. Like, those are our 2 preferred destinations.
I do think so. I think Sanders, he can't help himself more than anything. Like, he's got enough influence. He's got enough dudes in the industry, people he knows that, yes, that's being said. And my latest on Dion is, like, he's already come out and said him, his son, and Travis Hunter will not be at the draft. So you're gonna have 2 of the top picks not even there for the event in Green Bay. And come on, guys, like, show up to Green Bay and do what you're supposed to do. Like, you're getting drafted. And that, so, I mean, he said, we want to celebrate with the student body. Are you kidding me? You're not going to be celebrating with the college students. Like, that's not happening. That's not happening, Dion. That's full of shit. You are absolutely full of shit. I think they should be in Green Bay. That's just my opinion. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, if Dion said it, he's probably not going to change unless the NFL's like, hey, listen, we need to get you out here.
I don't know why you wouldn't want to be like, you get drafted once. I don't know why you wouldn't want that experience of going on the stage and hugging Roger Goodell and all that. Like, that to me, like, as a prospect, that's way better than just watching it from a couch, like in front of a student body that I don't really care about, that I'm never going to see again.
Yeah, they're not with the student body. Now, they may be with some student bodies, but they're not with the student body. Like that, they're with their special people. They're, Dion's guys. So I would like to see them there. We'll see if that changes over the next 3 months. But going to be interesting. I know you love the draft.
I do love the draft.
You do love the draft.
I would love if the Giants ended up having the number 1 pick, and I wouldn't have to stress out about how the first 2 picks are going to go and how all the infinite possibilities. And then I could just be like, all right, it'll be Ward, it'll be Sanders, one of the 2, and then I could just move on. But nope, it's never that easy.
Well, it's because they beat the Colts.
No. The Colts lost to the Giants.
What bad
Colts.
loss.
It was one of the most gutless, choking dog performances that I have ever witnessed on a football field. Not like Drew Lock was great, yes, but the Colts were the most horrendous football team I've ever seen.
Yeah,
that's a team that should have made a change. Well, like
yeah,
I
was just going to say that maybe that could be a surprise is that Steichen made it through.
But the GM, like Chris Ballard, sucks. Yeah. They're the only team that hasn't won. What was it? Hasn't won the division in a decade.
Yeah,
and you're in a division with Jacksonville, and Houston, and Tennessee.
Tennessee, right? Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
It's puzzling.
Yeah.
All right. College football, real quick. We're kind of running a little bit long here, but we got one good playoff game. That Texas-Arizona State game was awesome. Very happy about that. I think that was it, right? As far as like the first round and then the quarterfinals, like one really great, memorable game, like Notre Dame, Georgia, just all the circumstances around that happening in New Orleans, pushing it back. And then just Georgia was really just non-competitive, just felt like they weren't going to have a shot there. Ohio State absolutely rolling Oregon was surprising, but I mean, it was so bad. The first half was like, all right, well, this one's over. Yeah, so we got one, and Arizona State deserves their props for hanging in there with Texas. But the Final Four is really interesting now because Penn State and Notre Dame are two teams where it's like, oh yeah, they're a little bit overrated by the media. They get a lot of love, but they're never really considered like a powerhouse. And one of those teams is going to be in the national championship now.
Correct.
So that'll be fun. And then Texas and Ohio State. Where's your lean right now? Because what is it? So the game on Thursday, is that going to be the Penn State Notre Dame? So yes. We'll be doing our show after that, and then Friday will be the other one. So where's your lean right now for both of those right now?
Yeah, so I like Notre Dame and I like Ohio State. I think Notre Dame has shown that they continue their toughness has been very, very impressive. Maybe we're still going against this whole James Franklin thing, although he's won 2 big games now in the last 2 weeks. But first of all, I want to thank college football for putting that on Thursday night we have Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday football.
And Monday.
No reason to go on Saturday with the NFL being there. So Thursday night, Friday night. And then I'm going to take Ohio State on Friday night against Texas. They obviously, that loss to Michigan did something to this team. Their offense looks totally different. I don't know if they were vanilla in the regular season, vanilla against Michigan. They figured some things out. I'm going to go Notre Dame, Ohio State in the title game.
Is it at all concerning to you that all 4 teams that had a first-round bye lost? Is it that's just a coincidence, don't worry about it? Or does it speak to something that maybe that long layoff really hurt them? Because, like, in theory, you want to give those byes to the top 4 teams in the nation. And I think that they're going to have to do something because Boise State and Arizona State, under no metric, were 2 of the 4 best teams in college football. But to have Oregon also lose the way they did and to have Georgia lose the way they did, isn't there some validity to like, hey, maybe we should change how we approach this bracket a little bit?
Yeah, probably. I'm not sure the solution for that unless you just don't give byes. It's like a 16 team and you just go 1-16. You don't give byes, and
I would almost rather do that.
Yeah, probably. I mean, so yes, that long layoff probably not great, but if you think about it, like Oregon is really the only team where it was kind of like wow, because like okay, Georgia lost, but they didn't have their quarterback. Mm-hmm. Boise lost because we don't think they were a top 4 team. Arizona State lost in a good one because we don't think they're a top 4 team. So yeah, I mean, 3 of them were probably like, yeah, they're probably going to lose anyway. Oregon one was shocking. Like, I don't know where that came from. I mean, I think you had to not be surprised that Ohio State won that game because the first game was obviously very close and Ohio State probably could have won the first one. But the nature of it was incredible. Like, absolutely steamrolled them. Like, Oregon stood no chance from the beginning. Oregon scored, they scored again, and before you know it was 24-0. And it was over. Like, we're not giving up this lead. There was really sometimes you get that window where it's like, oh, here's a window. Oregon might have this window. There was no window. The window was shattered. There was no window. It was stunning, actually. Ohio State looked really good. And I find it interesting. Ryan Day, Marcus Freeman, both guys were proverbially, what is that the right word? Fired this year. They were Marcus Freeman was fired after the Northern Illinois game. There was scathing reports. If he doesn't get this figured out, his time's done in South Bend. Ryan Day, of course, we've heard that story over and over. Now, Marcus Freeman, who is not going to the Bears, has a front runner for the Bears, according to people. He's not going to the Bears. And then Ryan Day is probably going to win a national championship. So, yeah, I love that that's where we get to. From fired to goats, literally goats, at the end of the year, potentially winning national championships.
Yeah, and it's the winning head coach at the end of the road. So Marcus Freeman, James Franklin, Steve Sarkisian, Ryan Day. One of those coaches is going to be a national champion. Those are guys we never considered them because it's been nothing but Dabo and Nick Saban,
pretty smart,
Jim Harbaugh last year. Kirby. Kirby. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Sarkisian has plenty of history. I mean, his story is interesting. He battled alcoholism forever. James Franklin with his, non-ability to get to the big game. But if you think about it, if we had this 12-team playoff for the last 5 years, Penn State's probably in it every year. Okay, we're not bad. And Ryan Day, unless he wins a national championship, will never be appreciated at Ohio State like he probably should be. And maybe he's not a good coach. I don't really know. And then I really like Marcus Freeman, but then again at Notre Dame, he's kind of that leader of men type guys. He's kind of the opposite of what they had before. They went from Brian Kelly, who was kind of a jackass, and actually funny because Brian Kelly noted when he left Notre Dame, well, we can't compete with the SEC. We don't have the resources. We don't have the horses here at Notre Dame to compete with the SEC. Well, Marcus Freeman did, and then ended up beating the SEC to get to the Final Four. So it's kind of fun because I don't think anybody likes Brian Kelly.
No, I would agree with that. And the one sort of positive that this playoff has delivered is the SEC's just failure. Bowl season, playoff season, just it's been a bad time for the SEC. I mean, my God, look at Alabama in that bowl game. That's been the positive here, and we'll see if it's just a short-term thing or if this is something where maybe there is an actual shift in power where the SEC is no longer the dominant thing. I mean, shoot, the SEC right now is cruising in college basketball. Maybe the SEC is now becoming the hoops conference, and Big Ten's going to take over for football.
Yeah, that, and we'll get to basketball here in a couple weeks. But yeah, the SEC's been very good. I mean, Tennessee's legit. Alabama's legit. Auburn's really good. I think Arkansas is going to end up being fine. Florida's been a top, the team. Kentucky. So yeah, you're right. Yeah. But I mean, let's be honest. The teams in both sports are where the money's at. Mm-hmm. End of story. And I got to give credit. Let me give credit here real quick. Illinois has a chance to win a national championship in basketball.
They've looked very good, and Brad Underwood is getting Coach of the Year consideration, and they're a great team.
Well, I mean, I was telling somebody else this over break. They're not sleeping, but they are a sleeping giant in this new realm of college sports because they have a lot of money and they have international resources to go get guys like that KJ, number 32 on the Illini basketball team. Now they're going to get a lot of those guys. They're a sleeping giant. I think they might finally be there. I'm giving them credit right here on our show. They're a sleeping giant to win titles.
Do you feel nauseous after saying that?
I mean, I'm just calling it like it is. I'm just calling it like it is. And then on the other side, and I'm on a soapbox here. We got to be getting off here soon. But I'm on a soapbox. Like on the other side, as a Kansas basketball fan, I'm not sure they have figured this out successfully yet. Now, successfully is in odd terms here because Kansas is very successful. Their basketball team is very successful. But I'm not sure they figured out the top way of this money and the NIL, NLI, whatever you want to call it yet. Maybe they will, but I'm not sure Self has got it quite figured out. I think Illinois is figuring it out, and they're going to get these international dudes. But anyways, that's a different topic for a different day.
Do you feel like Kansas is almost? I'm trying to think of a good analogy here. So you know how in college football, Clemson was like powerhouse, and then NIL and stuff started to shift. But then Clemson was like kind of stuck in their old ways where it's like, why do we need to do any of that? Like, we're Clemson, we won national championships. We not concerned about that. I'm not saying that Bill Self is like Dabo Swinney, because Dabo has his own reasons, right?
Yeah.
But like, do you feel like Kansas is sort of becoming that? Well, we're the Kansas Jayhawks. We're that legacy program. We don't need to stoop to whatever situation with NIL. Like, do you think that we're always going to succeed no matter what? We don't need to try to do all of this extra stuff and try to play this NIL song and dance in order to win national championships.
Well, they're getting guys. I mean, I think they're getting guys. I don't know as if they're getting the right guys, and I don't know if they're necessarily, because this has become more of a GM program than it has developing basketball players. Like, I'm not sure their GM is as strong as some of these others. They're getting good players come in, but you still got to form the team. And I'm not so sure they have figured out how to get the players and form the team all in 1 year. Whereas, okay, Self got a guy in 2 years, this team's going to be great. Now you have to do it now. And I'm just not sure he's getting the right mix yet. They're still gonna be a contender in the NCAA tournament, probably a second weekend potential team, but I don't know as if they're national title contending, because I don't think they've pieced their team together quite properly yet. My opinion, I'll continue to kind of follow that throughout. I think a team like Illinois, like Brad Underwood, is figuring out how to piece it all together and do it very quickly and do it successfully.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows what can unfold in 2 months? I mean, we're still a ways away from when it really matters. So we'll see what the form is for those teams going into the tournament. But yeah, I'm looking at just the rankings right now. Tennessee, Auburn are your 1-2, and I think you said at the beginning of the year, like, Auburn has a really good team. I thought Auburn was going to be a Final Four team last year. They lost in the first round. That's typically how it works with those teams. It's like they either go all the way to the Final Four or they get bounced early. But Auburn looks really good. But it's like Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama, Kentucky, Florida, Texas A&M, all in the top 10. Like, that's an SEC rolling right now.
Yeah,
and no Big Ten schools, right? The number one Big Ten school is Illinois at 13.
Yeah, it moved up to 13. Well, I mean, Purdue was bound to take a fall after last year. I mean, losing Zach Edey, they were national title contender a couple years in a row. Wisconsin's still pretty good, but maybe not to the national title level. You know, you brought those other programs in, the UCLA. I mean, Oregon was there until Illinois curb stomped them in Eugene. But I don't know if Oregon's a national title contender. And I'm outside of Illinois, I'm not sure the Big Ten has one, to be quite honest with you. But check with me in about 3-4 weeks, and things will change, and we'll get there. But I'm ready for that. But let's get the NFL and college football done first.
All right, so we'll wrap up the show, episode 32 of the Stupidest Sports Show on Earth, with this has become sort of a new tradition of ours, and I sort of like it here. Ever since we got to 23, we've been doing this each show in honor of the episode number. We do the best number in sports. So, like today, for the 32nd show, we're going to do the best 32s in sports. 32 is a loaded number. Yeah. I don't know if you went to ranker.com to pull up some names here for the best 32s. Like, right off the bat, Magic Johnson. Yep. I think is probably number one, right?
Yep. Number one.
Do you consider Shaquille O'Neal more of a 32 or a 34? Because he was 32 in Orlando, when he was dominant, but then what came to the Lakers, couldn't wear 32, obviously, because of Magic. So he gets 34. I kind of view him a little bit as both, maybe slightly more 34, but that's an option as well.
He was 32 in Phoenix too, right? He was there for a little bit, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm just trying to remember, because he was like 33 as well, someplace. Like, he was kind of all in that range all the time.
I'll give him both. Okay. Yeah, I mean, because he was so, I don't think polarizing is the right word, but such a big name, a big influence his rookie years in Orlando. Yes, I think you can picture Shaq as 32, and then his time in LA, you can picture him as 34. So I think we can give them both.
All right, good. We'll take that. And yes, he was 32 in Phoenix. So yeah, we'll give him both there. It's an NBA day though. Like 32 is it's NBA. Karl Malone, I think, was 32. Kevin McHale was 32.
Yep. Dr. J
was 32. Bill Walton with Portland was 32.
Rest in peace.
So yeah, Who's 32? Oh, I got a 32. I believe 32 is O.J. Simpson as well.
I believe you're right. Jim Brown, NFL, 30 was number 32. I believe baseball, we can go with Sandy Koufax.
That's a good one.
I believe he was 32. Trying to think other like current baseball. I don't know current baseballs that were 32. Did you say Steve? You said Steve Carlton, right?
I did not say Steve Carlton.
Steve Carlton, Dave Winfield. I'm looking up a couple baseball guys now. So those are some pretty good names. We this is one of our best outside of maybe the 23. NBA Jason Kidd.
Jason Kidd, was he? Yeah. I think of Jason Kidd as 5 though.
Okay.
He had both. I think he was 32 maybe in Phoenix.
Yeah, he was.
But then I associate him with 5 with like the Nets and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Dennis Martinez. 32.
That's a good one.
That's
El Presidente, yeah.
Oh, another rest in peace, Roy Halladay, 32.
That's a good one. Yeah, it's a loaded number.
Yeah, very good. We named 15 names or so there. Hockey, real quick. Still in the league, I believe. Jonathan Quick, right?
Yes. Goalie numbers are so hard, though.
Yeah, but he's still in the league, isn't he?
He is. He's a Ranger. He's the Rangers backup.
Yes, who have struggled.
Yes.
New York Rangers.
Yeah, very bad. Yes, Jonathan Quick, 32. He's 32 with the Kings, 32 with the Rangers. So that's a good pull.
There we go. That's it for the day. Those are our 32s. Back for 33 on Friday. Also a good number.
We should have tried to name 32 number 32s.
Not bad.
We can try that for 33 if you want. We have a couple days to prepare now. We should try to come up with 33 number 33s. That could be hard.
It could be hard.
I'm regretting it already.
Yeah. I would have to use ranker.com, I think.
Oh, no, not worth it. Not worth it. Pass. All right. Well, that does it for the 32s and episode 32 of the Stupidest Sports Show on Earth. Thanks to everyone who is back after the new year. We're going to have lots of fun stuff for 2025. A reminder, as always, if you missed anything, check out our podcast. It's available Spotify, Apple, iHeart, anywhere you get your podcasts. And give us a follow. Stupid Sports Show on Twitter. No W at the end. Rodney you've become a tweeting machine there, running the account and giving your thoughts, opinions. I like it. I like seeing all that that you have going on, all the polls in particular.
We'll see how they go. We'll stay active on there. We'll see how it goes.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll talk to you again Friday morning, 8 a.m. Central Time. So bright and early, we will give our official NFL Wildcard Weekend previews, our Texas-Ohio State preview, talk a little bit about that Penn State-Notre Dame game. If there's any other big NFL news that happens, I mean, Black Monday really sort of extends it's like Black Week in general. So there might be a couple more sneaky firings to discuss, but we got a lot to get to, and we'll have a ton to talk about twice a week throughout the new year. So for Rodney, I'm Tim Big Mac Van Stratton, and we'll talk to you again for the next episode of the Stupidest Sports Show on Earth. See you guys.
See ya.
Step right up, dummies, and listen to the Stupidest Sports Show on Earth with Rodney Newpol and Tim Van Stratton. Yeah.